All right, good morning. So this is Visual Support Series Part 2, Visual Supports for Older Adults. My name is Val Madsen, and I'm the Training and Development Specialist at Respite Care Association, Wisconsin. I'm very excited to be here today. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or unmute yourself and just let us know what questions you might have. So today we're going to go through kind of briefly visual supports, the benefits of using them, specifically using visual supports with older individuals, some best practice tips, and then give you some examples, answer any questions, see anything that you guys might use that work really well, and really try to get some feedback and really share information and share ideas. I did mention we have a YouTube channel. So this is the second part of the series. So please feel free to check out the other visual trainings if you want more information. So visual supports help to communicate information. We use visual supports all the time. Every day we're using them. And I have calendars, I have Post-it notes, I have color coding, I have lists. These are all types of visual supports. Along with throughout the world, we have visual supports as far as stop signs or traffic signals. Right now in stores or anywhere you go, there's a ton of visual supports around COVID and making sure that there's enough distance between people. So there's lines on the floor, there's the circles of where you should stand, keep 2 carts in between you and other people. So the world is just full of visual supports. And why we use them is it sometimes helps to make an abstract idea or abstract information more concrete. So if you tell someone, stay 6 feet apart, that can be hard to judge. But if you say 2 cart distances or you put marks on the floor, that's going to be easier to see. Visual supports can also be used to increase understanding of a language. And especially if it's someone who the language isn't their first language, or someone's really having a hard time with expressive communication, it just allows for visual supports to be there and to communicate the idea. What's a benefit of visual support is the idea is there longer. It's not just when I speak, you hear the information and then it goes away. If you need a little bit more time processing that information, visual supports are there. They aren't going away. Where when I say, all right, let's do this, then you have the words, but then they're gone. And typically we keep talking and talking and talking and continuing to give more information, and the person might still be processing what you originally said. So with visuals, they're there, they're concrete, they are there as long as the person needs them. Some benefits of using visual supports: it increases understanding, decreases anxiety, especially when you start looking at schedules or checklists, you know what's coming up next. It increases independence. If you are able to make a list of what a person is supposed to do, they're able to be more independent. Increases communication, decreases frustration, increases flexibility. So there's a lot of benefits for using visual supports. And again, we all use them all the time. And I think sometimes we forget when we start working with individuals with disabilities or older individuals, we try to make it more complicated than it is, but really we all use visual supports and it's a benefit for all of us. So really looking at using supports with older adults. Using supports, you want to make sure that you pay attention to how the visuals are introduced. Involve the person in what works for them. If someone all of a sudden gave me my daily schedule, but it's not a system that I like or that I understand, I'm not going to use it very well. So making sure that I'm involved in that planning process. Oh, this works, this doesn't. Visual supports will change over time as the individual's needs change. Today, as we talk about older adults, it's going to be somewhat vague, and some things will work with some individuals and not others. Because older adults is really a wide range. It might be individuals that start losing some of their vision because of aging, or hearing, or start losing some mobility, or it might also be on the dementia or Alzheimer's side. So there's really a wide range, and visual supports can be used with any of those populations. You just have to modify it for the individuals that you care for or that you're working with. We won't be touching directly on working with behaviors that challenge us. The biggest thing to remember is behavior is a form of communication. It's communicating an unmet need. So if there's a challenging moment that you're dealing with, trying to figure out what they're communicating is going to help you through that moment, and using visuals might better do that. Visuals of you communicating information, but then also of them communicating information back with you. So some best practice tips. Again, it's going to depend on each individual and what works for them. For some individuals, it might just be a word or a label. Others, it might be a picture and a word. Really depending on where that individual is at. The biggest thing to remember is use words that the individual uses. For example, my grandma, she called the refrigerator an icebox. So I'm not going to put refrigerator on here, because as she gets older, and if she starts having some memory issues or dementia, I'm going to want to use words that she's familiar with, that she has used her entire life. We're not changing the language that they're using at this point in time. So making sure that you use what they use. The other thing to think about is, does this make sense? This picture makes sense? Or do you need real life photos? Again, working with the individual, it's going to be different for each person. Can someone understand what a black and white drawing is, or do we need to take an actual picture of that object in their environment? So really just looking and seeing what makes sense for them. The next thing to really look at is color, contrast, and size. Being very aware of vision changes. And as we all get older, we're all going to experience some change in our vision. So what works for that individual? If you have the blue background with a light gray dinner plate, that can be very challenging to see. Where maybe you have the white background with the darker colored plate and the word dinner large, or the black background with the white dinner plate. What makes most sense for the individual? Making sure it's big enough. If you have a real small item or object or picture, it's very hard to see for some people. I actually attended a webinar this week, and they made a great point. We always give people these little cards, or put little cards on the walls for communication, or ask them to give us a card. But if someone's having dexterity issues, it's really hard to take a small laminated card to pass to somebody else. You might need something bigger, maybe something on a foam board, or something that makes more sense for that individual. So just being aware of the abilities of the person you're caring for. Finding the right height. And I see this all the time. People who are taller tend to put things at their level, their eyesight. And you see that in the stores with signs or bulletin boards. But remember, where is the eye line of the individual you're working with? Are they in a wheelchair, or do they use a walker and they bend over a little bit more? Where is their eye level? To make sure that it's something that they can see and that they can really find easily. One tip is to link colors to rooms. So if the bathroom is blue, use a blue sign, blue arrows, and so that makes sense. If the dining room is orange, use orange colors. So especially looking at different facilities, if these items are not within line of sight of the individual, they might need more direction on how to get there. So making sure that you have these direction keys and then matching the colors, making it color coded so that the individual is able to easily make that connection. And then a lot of people use lamination. And one thing that we don't always think about is making sure that you use a matte lamination instead of a glossy lamination. A lot of times the gloss is really hard to see just because of the glare off the lamination sheet. So making sure that you use the matte lamination is a very simple, easy tip to make things work better. All right, choice boards. So now we're going to go into some more specific type visuals. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or unmute yourself and let me know. But choice boards is a visual tool that allows an individual to select between 2 or more items. So again, depending on the individual you're working with, are they able to select from a wide variety of items, or do you have to reduce it down to 1 or 2? Really, choice boards are a great opportunity to give a person say in their daily lives. So for example, some choice boards might be for breakfast or for snack or for activities. But it might be too much to have 9 pictures. Maybe it has to be down to 2 or 3 pictures. Again, depending on what works for that individual. It might be, again, a laminated card. It could be something that's on just a sheet of paper that they point at. So whatever works for that individual is what you want to do. Choice boards can be used for colors. Let's say you're doing an art project or you're working, getting dressed. You know, what color shirt do you want to wear? And you could hold up the 2 shirts, or you could have a choice board that has the options. Giving people more control in their lives, you're going to have a better experience. Think about, as you get older, how much control are you going to want in your life? So really being aware of that and making sure that we're not just making decisions because it's easiest, and making sure that we're involving the individuals we're working with. Because as people get older, you start losing some functions and you really struggle with not being as independent. Schedules are another great opportunity to allow someone to be more independent. Also to know what's coming up next. So this might decrease anxiety. Sometimes we forget what's coming up next or what's happening this afternoon, and it might cause the person you're caring for to ask questions over and over, you know, oh, when are we doing this? When are we going to have lunch? When are we going out shopping? When are we doing this? Where if you have a visual schedule, it could be a list. So, oh, after this, first we're doing this, then we're doing this. So some examples of visual schedules might be just words. Maybe that works for somebody, where it's just, all right, so they have the times, they have the activities, and they know exactly what's coming up next. It might be a checkoff sheet or a checklist. So this is the schedule, and you can, this is laminated and it has Velcro so that you can change the schedule each day. But that person can check off the activities, or they could pull them off. So there's a couple different ways you can use those different schedule boards. Sometimes this is too much. Sometimes having the entire day is too overwhelming for people. So it might just be the morning. So when that person wakes up in the morning, maybe it's going through the schedule for the morning. First, we're going to get dressed, you know, or go to the bathroom, get dressed, have breakfast, do these morning activities, have lunch. And then at lunch, you go through the afternoon schedule. At dinner, you go through the evening schedule. So it doesn't become so overwhelming. Some individuals struggle even with that much. And so you might just have to do, first we're doing this, then we're doing this. Or these are the 3 things that we have to worry about right now. So again, it's very individualized for what the person needs. I have a daily schedule that I use in my planner. I plan out my day. And so I write in all my meetings, and then I figure out, okay, I want to spend this much time on this project, this much time on this project. So I have a plan for my day. So we all use schedules, and I think sometimes we forget that it really helps us. My anxiety would be very high, and I would be very overwhelmed if I didn't have a schedule to look at and to really be able to keep me going and keep me moving forward as my day goes on. Communication board. So communication board is a device that has different pictures, words, symbols, so the user can communicate. So far we've talked a lot about how we're communicating to the person we're caring for, but this is a way for them to communicate back with us. And I think sometimes we forget that we need to offer a way for them to communicate as well. So it could be something as simple as, where it's just pictures of what they might need or want, a pain chart or a pain levels, what types of pain or where it hurts. Maybe it's a picture of a body. But as individuals' word abilities start to change, or they're having a hard time coming up with words, this might be a really good way to involve them in asking what's going on. Again, challenging behaviors or moments that we really are struggling with to understand the people we're caring for, they're trying to communicate an unmet need. So communication boards might be able to help us figure out what that person needs. And then the next part, we're going to just talk about some daily living supports. One thing to remember is making sure that you communicate or adapt them for whoever you are working with, what works for that individual. With daily living supports, think about how you would feel if, let's say, you've done laundry or cooking for your family every day of your adult life. And now all of a sudden that's something that's challenging for you. And, someone comes in to help care for you and they just take over. That can be very hard. And you can have an increase in behaviors or moments where someone gets upset because that's something that they have done their entire life. So making sure that you figure out ways that they can still be part of these daily living skills. Also be flexible as needs change, as vision decreases, as memory starts decreasing, the visual supports might have to change with them. Maybe the pictures become bigger. Maybe it's less words and only pictures, whatever works for that individual. So here's some examples of visual supports for laundry. So the first one where it says darks, whites, colors in the buckets, that can be cut out and you can put that on the outside of a laundry basket so that someone is able to sort their clothes. So a very simple way to use a visual support so that they can be independent in putting their laundry in the right basket. At my house, we all put it in one basket and we don't worry about sorting. But if that individual is one that likes their clothes sorted, this is a very helpful tool. Washing clothes, kind of breaking down the steps, sort clothes into light and dark, put clothes into the machine, select load size, and they color coded the load size and the water temperature, and so that might be enough. The other example is actual pictures. So showing the individual doing these things, and again, a checklist of what needs to be done. Sometimes it's hard to remember all these steps. So just by providing these simple visual supports, you're allowing the individuals to be more independent that you're working with. And that's going to help you. It's going to improve their quality of life significantly. Some looking at food. There's a lot of ways you can do a recipe or making a meal with pictures where you can take the pictures, you can write down the steps, you can help, so if I want a sandwich and I'm, now living with my kids, I want to be able to do it on my own and not have to ask my daughter to make me a sandwich every day. So this would be a way for me to be independent if I start forgetting what the steps are or the things that I need. Again, each person is very different on where they're at. So these are just some examples. Some individuals have set the table for, the last 50 years of their life. And as you forget where those things go on the table, you become more frustrated. So using a placemat so that they know, okay, a plate goes here, napkin, fork, spoon, and they can do that independently and they don't need someone to tell them the next steps or what they should be doing. So again, thinking of how can we help this person be as independent as possible. Labeling drawers, something as simple as, underwear, socks, pajamas. This is a technique I used when my kids were younger. And even as they've gotten older, sometimes that's still a helpful thing. On my desk, I have all of my shelves or all my files labeled. And so it's something that we do. Some people work really well like that, but especially if you're really trying to remember where things go, this is an easy way to do it without having to ask for help or be embarrassed about it. So really just allowing that individual to be as independent as possible. Different like household activities. This says household chores, but household activities. And maybe it's not this big long list. Maybe for afternoon, we have to do these 3 household chores or household activities, and just have the 3 listed, whatever it might be. But again, giving information, communicating with that individual so that they can be more independent. A grocery list and grocery shopping. It might be pictures like this where they circle or cross off what they need or don't need. Maybe the list is made for them and as pictures, and they can go and help grocery shop with you, and pick out the items that they need because they have this visual list. Something as simple as just Post-it notes, daily to do. It doesn't have to be an extensive picture list or lots of supports or visuals. It could be something as simple as Post-it notes. These are the 4 things we have to do. When you do them, you take them off. If they move to the next day, they move to the next day. That's something that is an easy visual that any of us really would be willing to use. But thinking about, this is a way to introduce visuals to someone who might be a little hesitant about using some extra supports. There's a lot of apps out there as well to help with like to-do lists or checklists where you can make lists and then check them off as you go. Just the notes section, a notes app. There's a lot of different things out there that can be very useful as well. All right, now looking at cue cards. Sometimes it is a struggle to get individuals to remember to do different daily living skills. So these cards might be something where you take a picture of the actual individual and eating makes me strong and healthy. So it's just a cue card so that it's not always you telling them what to do, but it's them telling themselves what to do. I'm going to shower to feel warm and clean. And so it's almost like a positive affirmation, things that we repeat to ourselves. We're going to be more willing to do it if we have some visual cues there. Again, like I said at the beginning, sometimes when we talk, it goes in and then it's still being processed, but I've continued talking and giving more information. If you have a visual, this is going to help. Why do I have to shower? Oh, here, I'm going to shower to feel clean and warm and be ready to go for my day. Another good thing to have is conversation starters. So this can be done in a variety of ways, but just having pictures of family members, leisure interests, past occupations, whatever it might be, but having those pictures so that you can start conversations or you can easily redirect if someone is really struggling or they're really getting focused on whatever it might be. And this can be done in a lot of different ways. It could be in like a photo book that you have these pictures. It could be separate cards that you print out and laminate and hole punch and just have them on a key ring so they can always be with that individual or be in their purse or their bag or with you. It could be creating a book, like having this is my room and having a picture of what my room is. And then, something like this is where I eat and having a picture of that. So again, having a book that they can look at, places I've lived, where I grew up and having a picture of that and being able to go through the book to be able to see what is, can start some conversation for those individuals. So there's lots of ways to do that. And it doesn't have to be that involved or that big where the person really struggles using it. It can just be a little cue card that's pocket size that, you know, oh, hey, tell me about when you were growing up and going fishing. You know, something like the fishing pole. This is a great picture because it doesn't necessarily show anyone or a real good picture of a place, but it can bring back a memory. Like, oh, I can see myself here holding that pole. That brings back some memories, and I can tell you about those things. So those are some ideas that we had that we wanted to share with you. Does anyone want to share any ideas that has worked really well for them? Or that they want to share with the group, or any questions that you have? All right. As I mentioned, this is the second of the visual support series. Next week, we're going to talk about creating your own visuals. So going more into the how to make different visuals instead of these are visuals that work really well for children and adults. These are visuals that work for older individuals, but more like a hands-on tips and tricks. This is how you start. This is where you start, especially if you aren't really sure how to get started. That's a great opportunity for you to get some more information. Again, if you aren't able to make any of these, we are recording them and putting them on our YouTube channel. So you are more than welcome to see them there as well. So I'm going to turn off the recording now.